It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws his power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East.
Harry S. Truman was born in 1884 in the small town of Lamar, Missouri. After high school, Truman did not attend college, but instead worked a variety of meager jobs before returning to the family farm in Independence, Missouri. When World War I broke out in 1914, Truman volunteered to serve for his country, even though as a farmer, he was exempt from the draft.
After the war ended, Truman returned home and opened a business, which was short-lived thanks to the Great Depression. Later, Truman went on to be elected as senator in 1934. During his time in Congress, Truman became close with the current president at the time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. 7 years into World War II, Roosevelt ran for his fourth term, and Truman was chosen to stand by his side as vice president.
Roosevelt and Truman were elected in November 1944. However, after just 82 days as vice president, Truman was thrust into the role of commander-in-chief when Roosevelt died of a massive stroke. With no prior experience in foreign policy, suddenly Truman was charged with the task of unimaginable difficulty, ending a world war.
Truman now had to make a choice. Either send in American troops to launch a full frontal invasion of the home islands of Japan, or utilize the newly invented technology of the Manhattan Project, a top-secret $2 billion program that developed the world's most destructive weapon of all time, the atomic bomb.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy.
Harry Truman's decision to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki is considered one of the most controversial actions of all time. However, many people argue that, considering the circumstances, Truman was justified in dropping it because it brought a swift end to a ghastly war. By doing this, he theoretically saved countless American lives. Supporting Truman's decision is Harlan Brockman, a docent at the Truman Library in Independence, Missouri.
You know, we had been fighting with the Japanese since December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor occurred. And we were taking islands gradually all the way up toward the home islands of Japan. There was one island called Iwo Jima. We lost 6,800 of our soldiers dying to take that 10-square-mile island. That's 680 U.S. soldiers dying for every 8-block by 8-block by 8-block area. We lost 680 for every one of those square miles. D-Day for the home islands of Japan was scheduled for November 1, 1945. Harry Truman had the atomic bomb available, and he decided to use it because our military brass said, with the way the Japanese fight, and they were very good fighters, we will lose 500,000 or more of our soldiers when we attack the home islands of Japan. If we lose 500,000, the Japanese will lose at least that many, if not more. I don't think he really had a difficult time making that decision. I think war is not justified, but to settle a war, I'd say that was what he had to do.
Not all view the legacy of Truman's decision as a positive one. Those who feel this way argue that the aftermath of the bomb was far too costly, affecting the health and development of countless individuals, not to mention the destruction caused in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In opposition to Truman's use of the atomic bomb is UCLA professor James Yamasaki, who is the lead physician of the U.S. atomic bomb medical team assigned to Nagasaki to survey the effects of the bomb in 1949.
witnessed what it does right in Nagasaki, talking with the survivors. What it does is that in an instant, the effects of the blast, the effects of the fire, the heat, and the effect of the radiations are the three principal source of the injury that affects the population. Of course, there's always other ways to resolve human conflicts, but unfortunately, human history reveals that when we can't resolve conflicts, nation resort to war. And now, one of the weapons of war happens to be this most destructive nuclear weapons. Humans have to learn how to communicate in a more reasonable way.
Truman defended his leadership and the decision to drop the atomic bomb by emphasizing his role as the President of the United States.
I had to make the decision as to whether the atom bomb was just another piece of artillery. We had 3 completed bombs. We had used one for a demonstration in New Mexico. We had 2 bombs left, and we had to be very, very careful on how we used those bombs.
Truman and his decision was a legacy in and of itself. After the dropping of the atomic bomb, the USSR forced its scientists to work even harder to develop this nuclear power in order to catch up to the United States. By 1949, the USSR had detonated their first atomic bomb, immediately pulling them up in the ranks with the US. However, a power tug-of-war began between the two great nations, and the Cold War period began, igniting worldwide fear of atomic warfare. Though the immediate effects of the atomic bomb were undoubtedly astronomical, Truman's decision ultimately triggered a chain reaction that accumulated in tensions with implications so vast that any misstep could result in the annihilation of world peace. Later on, the Non-Proliferation Treaty was signed in 1968 by the US and other countries seeking to prevent the spread of nuclear warfare. Since then, several countries, including Russia, Israel, and North Korea, have abandoned or even defied this treaty, threatening the safety of others around the world. Therefore, there is no doubt that Truman's leadership and the legacy of the atomic bomb can still be felt today.
Harry Truman deserves more credit than he gets for the decision he made. He led the country out of war and did what he thought was best as the President of the United States. The bomb was just sitting there, ready, while hundreds of soldiers died every day. Truman couldn't afford not to use it.
Yet, in its wake, the atomic bomb killed over 100,000 innocent civilians who had committed no crimes and played no part in the war. Men, women, and children, just going about their lives one moment, were gone the next. It is a tragedy by every meaning of the word. However, by dropping the bomb, World War II came to a close, saving countless lives on both sides. Those that would have been lost had the Allies invaded by land.
We all can agree that no matter what decision Truman made, the larger problem is war itself. Just as many civilians were killed by the atomic bombs in August 1945 as those who were killed in bombing raids throughout the war. Is death by atomic bomb worse than death by another weapon? War should be avoided at all costs. May we remember those who died, both soldiers and civilians, both Japanese and American, and discover better ways to solve humanity's problems than with war.
When we reflect on our past and try to justify the use of the atomic bomb, we fail to realize the bigger picture. As Harlan Brockman recalls on one of his tours,
We had a lady there who was a resident of Nagasaki, and somebody in our group asked her this terrible question: what do you think of Harry Truman's decision to drop the atomic bomb? Her answer surprised me. She said, well, war is